This is my bird.
After 11 and a half hours, Brent has reached the extraction point.
Jared!
Because Brent was unable to sleep while in captivity, he has now been awake for over 35 hours. He successfully evaded over 2.5 miles in just over 11 and a half hours. He also climbed about 2,800 feet during his evasion.
Cheers, bud.
Yeah, cheers, man. Outstanding. Because Brent finished with just over 12 hours remaining, everyone gets to go back to my place to get some rest for the next event. Jared is up next, and because Brent actually made it up to the extraction point, not only does Jared have to make it, but he also has to beat Brent's time of 11 and a half hours.
Been all over him all day.
All day long.
All right, stand up. Why are you in my country?
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is episode 7, live chat, question and answers. Get your questions in. This will be the last time we get to talk to the contestants about it before it becomes OnlyFans. So let's bring in the gentleman. What's going on, guys?
Hey, bruh.
What's up, guys?
All right, so Stoker might jump in here. We'll cover some interrogation stuff. But in the meantime, so I'm going to lead the questions for now. Jared, what's your thinking? What's your approach as a survivor? What's your game plan?
Just to get away from the X at that point and gain as much distance as I possibly can and not stop. Just keep on pushing as hard and as fast as I can at this point.
All right. So are you thinking about the time limit yet, or is that going to come later?
Actually, throughout the whole process, it never really occurred to me, the time limit. I knew I had a time limit, but it wasn't really much of a thought in my head. You know, I was just trying to push as hard as I could. You know, I was trying to get up there as quickly as I could. So maybe it was in the back of my head a little bit, but subliminally, I guess. But no, I was just pushing hard.
All right, Brent, we got a little bit of your game plan in the episode, but you want to walk us through kind of what you're going to be doing as the hunter, what your game plan?
Yeah, so my plan was to first I had to close that time distance gap, right? So Jared starts, he's got, about 10 minutes or so ahead of me, before I even get on scene on deck. And I have to close that gap. My strategy was, I know, Jared's got to maneuver through, arduous terrain. I was going to take high speed avenues of approach and get on, hardball roads so that I could get not only close the gap with him, but get past him and then start setting up LPOPs where I could observe. So that's what's going through my head at the time right there in the beginning.
All right, let's answer this question for Roy. What's LPOP for people who don't know? Brent?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and answer that question. What is LPOP?
Oh, so it's funny you asked that. I'm actually working on a video addressing just that very topic. But listening post, observation post. So essentially get to a position where I can set up a position where I can observe and listen for Jared, essentially. So in order to do that, I got to get past him, and I got to get in front of him, right? I've got to get in between him and the direction he's going. So that's what I'm first starting to do. I'm trying to first close that time distance gap between us, right? And then get in front of him and then set up so that I can sit there and observe and hopefully wait till, Jared comes strolling on in front of me.
Yeah, see, that's one of those things my wife beat me up on, because I had her watching this stuff as like an outsider from the military. And some of those things I made the decision to leave it in our lingo. And people will see throughout the series, they've probably already seen a bunch of it, that a lot of things work that way, because we're all doing this, and I'm kind of writing it and doing the series assuming that a lot of people understand a lot of this terminology. But yeah, I could have easily spelled that out at least, but I didn't. So, but like we'll get into some funny stuff. Like, I was getting beat up on my screening audience was talking about, like, yeah, you're going from feet to meters, and I'm like, yeah, we do that. Like, I've never seen a guy in the grunt world will use the proper military system until it comes to elevation. I've never heard elevation in meters in my grunt experience. It's always in feet, but everything else, yep, one click that way, 500 meters that way. I don't know why.
The qualification rifle range too, known distance. You shoot 100, 200, 300, 500 yard line.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, yards and meters are almost interchangeable. A yard is like a couple inches longer than a meter, but it's not a major. It's not a big killer, unless you're shooting like long ranges.
Hey, when you've put a flag on the moon, you can use whatever the hell you want to use.
There you go. A 32nd of an inch is smaller than a millimeter. All right, so people have talked about it during the premiere of episode 7. So let's address this. Like, we'll let Jared go first, since he's a survivor. So there's a pretty significant difference in not the terrain, but foliage and obstacles and stuff. So Jared, what are you noticing on your run as a survivor?
So where I'm at up there on the northern side, northwestern side of the AO, it is a lot more open. There's not as much manzanita over there as there was on the south side, where I was hunting Brent, and when I was the hunter. We're there as. Say again.
No, you're good.
Okay, I thought I heard you say something. So yeah, it is a lot more open there, but there is still a lot of heavy brush. Some of the ravines are really thick, because that's where the water collects. So you're able to hide in that. The brush that is out there, you could still utilize it as concealment. You just have to be a little bit more methodical in how you move between those concealment points. But you are able to move a lot faster on that side because of the lack of foliage over there. You just have to be a little bit more methodical about it. You're muted.
So Stoker's in the house.
Stoked.
Yeah, so people were talking about that you moving a lot quicker, and talking about I saw some people beating you up on your tactics in there, but I think that was a major part, because Brent did not have the choice to get up and run as much as you did. Brent was basically crawling most of the time.
Right, yeah, because when he was the survivor, he was in the thick, heavy brush all day long, and I was trailing behind or beside him most of the way and doing the same thing. But over on this side of the AO, and that just kind of happened how it happened, where we ended up over there. It is a lot more clear. I am up on the ridge line quite often and quite a bit, but I make sure I stay down off the very top of the ridge, you know, a good, I don't know, 75, 100 feet, 50 meters or so, you know, so I'm not silhouetting myself against that ridge line.
Yeah, so we got some good questions coming up, but let me address one real quick. Did the hunter start where the survivor escaped? Yeah, we bring the hunters in right where the survivor escapes. Hopefully you guys noticed Jared escaped from a different point. So that was a change. And then how long of a head start did the survivor get? He got about 10 minutes, just like Brent did. And then I think this is interesting. So Jared, at your age, did you find your speed lagging more than you thought it would?
No, I don't think so. I think I did pretty well. You know, I think I'm about 10 years older than you guys are. You know, I'm not out there doing cardio every day, so that affected me a little bit, but I was still able to keep up and keep ahead, and I felt it at the end of it. You know, I was hurting for a couple days afterwards, and I was pretty wiped out. But I thought I did fairly well for my age.
Yeah, and I mentioned that you were absolutely flying. Early on, I think just as right after Brent got released, we were all looking at the trackers and we were like, holy balls, this is going to be over fast. So, of course, eventually the perks and, you know, the scouts doing their thing, that all kicks in. So that slows it down. But yeah, you were fucking flying. And I, you know, with the GoPros, it's hard to get all the good sound out of there without it sounding horrible. But if you had your volume up, you'd hear Jared's breathing, because I specifically put up his elevation gain when he was talking about his legs being smoked from the day before, because he really did climb over 300 feet in about 15 to 20 minutes. He was right up that freaking hill. And so since we got Stoker, let's talk about the interrogation. So if you guys got any questions about that. So since we didn't have you last week, what's how'd you feel with this scenario compared to the last one? A little bit different, a little more comical.
Yeah, it's all going to be different, and you know, Jared and Brent's differences in character and personality and what they both brought to the table, and what and how they were fighting was it was great to see, because every situation is going to be a little bit different, a little unique, and I thought it was fantastic. Certainly caught my attention a few times. I think I broke my composure a couple times. not unlike you know, dealing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but certainly in its own way. So it was fantastic, because you know, when you're put in a situation like both of these contestants are, you know, you have to figure out, you know, risk versus reward, and you know, ultimately what's important, what's the value. And I think Jared really spoke to that really well in the live chat last week when I caught it. Of, you know, you're in this position, and odds are it's not going to go in your favor. So he's going to, you know, you remain true to your integrity and who you are. So I think he did a good job doing that.
Yeah. So I just finished up the final episode. So I put all the fun stuff in there, everything that was happening. Yeah. We had 3 cameras rolling all the times during the interrogation, and yeah, there was some things I did not know happened that I found later on the cameras. Yeah, but it's good stuff. I mean, you know, yeah, if people have done if you haven't done military training, you know, there's a lot of role playing and you know, pretending, like even down to on the ground when you're practicing tactical drills and stuff, you're out there yelling pew pew at each other. So but I think Jared took a different approach with the interrogation, and it, it's kind of made it a little more entertaining. But the bottom line was he was for what we could get away with, he was still sitting there, freezing his ass off, and that's always part of it. So let's get to some more questions. So Brent, you got the interrogator here. You got anything to say to him? What he did or did not do to Jared?
I mean, I think you should have mixed in some titty twisters or something,
That's
with
right.
all that, with all that back talking to his. I would have put a bar of soap in his mouth, wash him out, potty mouth.
Potty mouth.
So,
yeah,
You forget, Brett. I was Navy, so I might have liked those titty twisters.
well, I'm waiting for episode 10. I think there's going to be some stuff was probably reserved for the OnlyFans on Randall's
There
page.
is.
But maybe he'll put it in the episode for all to watch. Oh, hey, by the way, Randall, I made a joke about having an Only Grunts section on my YouTube channel, and I literally had a dude say, "I'm unsubscribing to you," blah blah blah, because he thought I was gonna, make exclusive content.
wow.
I know.
Keeps it filled. It keeps it filled.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah, that'll be in the last episode too. Stoker's talking about his freaking canteen, his flask. Here's a serious question. Why didn't we just get the detainee drunk? You guys think you could survive this drunk? It would up your water consumption for sure.
Go down as a heat
No,
cat.
I think Brent would have a better chance of surviving it that drunk than I would.
Yeah, it might have sped him up. He just would have been crashing through the manzanitas and punching through them. Like, I'm coming for you. Like, Brent, you're going the wrong way. You're headed toward the hunter. But just story time. When I got into CA, we knew we were going to Afghanistan, like a bad area. And we knew we might be operating as 1s and 2s. And I did meetings with like known Taliban guys, like our secret squirrel dudes were like, this dude's bad, watch your ass. So all the training up to that, we had read stories about some of the ODA guys getting poisoned, like stuff being put into their chai, either like serious diuretics or some kind of form of opium. So either way, they were bumming. And if you're in a really small team like that, or if you're kind of cut off from your security bubble, that's pretty bad. So we actually did in Graf, Eastern Germany, before we deployed, my team decided to do drunken training. So we did basically everything we could, down to battle drills and everything, not live fire, but driving trucks, like clearing rooms, clearing out of rooms. Like we did everything we could, smashed, just to try to get as close as, we couldn't smoke opium in training, but just to try to get totally messed up and see how we would perform. And of course it turns into a shit show. You got a bunch of drunken soldiers trying to train, but it's, not, that didn't happen to us, thankfully, but I just thought about it since that guy mentioned it, and I'm sure we weren't the only ones that came up with that. I'm sure the cool guys,
Nice excuse, Randall. I can't believe that worked. I'm pissed I didn't think of that one.
Hey, drunken
oh
training,
yeah,
man.
the special forces guys were intoxicated. We're gonna have to train drunk.
Yeah. All we needed was to be flipping over some freaking Humvees.
Yeah. Hey, I got my own little thing I want to throw in terms of this episode. So it's like we kind of already touched on it, like the terrain, not necessarily the terrain, but like the amount of manzanitas, right? So it's like when I was the survivor, I really didn't have a grasp on like how far the endpoint was, and the vegetation was so much thicker over there on that southeastern side, the direction I was coming from, and so I was going at a much slower, just because of the vegetation, and I didn't know where the endpoint was. I didn't know what to expect. So, Jared goes into this. He knows the time he's got to beat. So he has that extra added pressure on him. And it is in a more open area on that western side where he started, at least before, you cross over that road. So those are kind of the two vast differences on, why it's probably a lot more fast paced in this time around as opposed to the first one. Just kind of different mindsets.
Yeah, you got. So what does that do to your game plan as the hunter, knowing that he has a time limit?
Well, so I mean, I knew I had to get in front of him, and I knew I could take the hardball roads, and I didn't think it was going to be that fast paced, and to be quite frank, I still didn't know exactly where the endpoint was, even when I was the hunter. I knew it was to the northeast, but I had no real concept of how much distance I actually covered when I was a survivor. Also, all I knew was, hey, I escaped early in the morning. And when I finished, the sun was down. So, I had no concept on how much distance I actually covered. So, Jared's, time, when he's going, the fact that he's covering as much ground as he is, in my head, it's like, God damn, how is he moving this fast? Well, the reality is it's a more open terrain over on that side in the beginning. So that's why. I mean, my movement was super slow because I'm going through heavy vegetation. Plus, I have all day, 24 hours to make it there. I'm not in a rush. Jared's got more open terrain. Plus, he knows, hey, I got to beat Brent's time to the endpoint. And also, when I was a survivor, I didn't know that, time was really a thing, right? Like I was thinking still off of when Stoker went, like they had the, the competitions in like starting a fire and building a shelter and all that stuff. So I was still thinking when I was a survivor that that all factored into like tiebreakers and everything else. I didn't know it was, time was that big of a deal until, later on into the challenge when I was a survivor. So.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting point about the land navigation aspect. When you're in terrain like that and you have foliage 3 feet over your head, all you have is that compass and the last sit rep you got as a survivor. But I think we got at least one shot of Jared getting up there on a hilltop and being able to look around, and so then you can kind of get that dead reckoning and orient yourself a little bit better, so he knows the general direction. But Jared, you found that trail, the main trail, pretty quickly. Did you use that? Did you skirt that to navigate, or were you trying to get away from it but stay on course?
I was trying to get away from the road, and I didn't know exactly which direction the road had the bearing of the road was. And I probably ran into that road after I made my escape from the truck 3, maybe 4 times. Might have even been 5 times, and I might have crossed the road at the 5th time. I was getting pissed off because I kept hitting that road. I just kept going to my right, or what I thought was going to my right, and the road would show up again. So I'd go off to the left, and just the way I think the road was going, I just kept running into it. So I finally got pissed off and just said, fuck it, I'm going to go across the road at this point. And that's whenever, I don't think you showed any of that footage, so I won't even mention that, but I eventually crossed back over fairly quickly and tried to skirt that ridge.
It's going to come up. I got pretty much that whole part of the roads. What's cool about that main road, that's why we use that most of the time, because it snakes through like a big chunk of the AO, but it snakes through it. So that's very handy for the scouts and like Bill and them on the hunting team, because they can position themselves anywhere to block people. And with this bullhorn. So like we got that in that episode, that's one of the first things Stoker did was he got up there and started yelling at you. And so did that drive you away at all, or once you heard him bullhorning and you're like not far from you?
No, I think one of the last times I approached the road, and I think after that is when I crossed the road. So I waited for Stoker to pass. He was up there in the bullhorn for 5 or 10 minutes or so, and I just laid low over the ridge line. And after I heard him move off, I crossed the road and got onto the other side and down over the other side of the ridge, and was over there for, I don't know, half an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes. And then crossed back over again because I didn't like where I was at on that side. So then after I crossed back over, that's when I kind of stayed down low off of the ridge line and just kind of headed east and northeast direction there. And it was fairly open, and I kept hitting those little tiny ravines. I don't want to say they were tiny, but they were making me mad too, because at this point I'm tired. I've been up for over 48 hours. I keep hitting these little ravines that I have to get across, and they're really thick with brush in there. So you have to tunnel your way through through the brush in these ravines and get up to the other side, and then it opens up again. There was probably 8 or 10 of them along that northern edge of that ridge line there.
Yeah, that's kind of what's strange about that area. All these spurs kind of come off the ridge up there, and you got those to deal with. But like in Brent's area, you get into the low ground, and it would be like kind of like a valley or a wide gulch or something, and then you'd go back up. But like the area you're in, Jared, you have this wide open terrain, and then as soon as we're going to see more of it in the next episode. But yeah, you do have these tiny little gulches that are just up and down, and it's like, what's funny is looking at it from an overhead view, like when I show the maps view, and even us looking at it from a drone, it just looks like a little depression, like a little ditch or something, but it's actually like a 5 to 10 foot drop full of manzanitas. So yeah. It's
not deeper.
Really yeah. And we'll see in the next episode, like when some things start to come up, like how you have to contend with those. But for now, you're freaking rolling. And I made sure to mention that, I think at least twice, like your speed. And then, Brent's just like, holy fuck, I got to get up there. So Jared, what are you thinking? You were the hunter the first time. Are you trying to anticipate what Brent is doing as the hunter?
A little bit, yeah. And now we're both familiar. We've had a whole day out there getting familiar with the terrain and where everything is and landmarks and whatnot. So you try to get in his head a little bit and see what he's doing, knowing that he's trying to get in your head to see what you're doing and figuring out what each other is doing.
Well, after all the shit talking beforehand, do you think you've seen this episode, but you don't know what's coming next. Do you think Brent is going to be hound dog behind you the whole time coming for you, or are you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
OPs? Okay.
The whole time I'm out there, I think he's right behind me or right off to the side of me somewhere, or I'm going to run into him. I'm going to go across in front of him and he's going to reach out from behind a tree and grab me and tackle me or whatever, but yeah, so you always have that in your mind. And that's just, you just have to push through. If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, great. You just keep going.
So Stoker, that's a note for the next time, is we need to pre-record both of the hunter's voices so we can put that through the bullhorn behind the guy. So he actually does think the hunter's right behind him.
Yeah.
That'd be some good psyops right there.
Mm-hmm.
Get them talking more on the radio to each other. So Brent, what are you thinking Jared's doing as a survivor? If you're trying to him.
So, I'm thinking that he's doing what I was doing, right? So like I said, I didn't know, or I at least didn't fathom in the beginning that he was going to be moving as fast as he was. I thought he was going to be moving, slow and methodical like I was the previous day, right? But once I started getting some of those intel updates, it's like, oh shit, it's this guy's moving a lot quicker than I thought he was. So, just trying to close that time distance gap. I'm going to answer a question I saw earlier. Somebody is asking if we had any tracking training and if we ended up using it, like, seeing footprints and stuff like that. I have had a combat hunter training in the Marine Corps, and that's like, tracking footprints and stuff like that. But if you do that out here in this challenge, you will never get ahead or catch up with, the survivor. There's no way. He will be ahead of you the whole time. And there was so much vegetation out there that, if you lose spore, which is like the footprints or any type of sign that, the survivor made, and you sit there and do like lost spore procedures and try to pick it up again, that all takes time. And there's no way you would catch the survivor by just following his tracks and path. So honestly, the only way I can think a hunter can effectively capture this guy is with a combination of perks and just getting ahead of that survivor, being able to head him off. That's in my opinion, that is the number one strategy for a hunter.
Yeah, it
And I
seems
don't
like
know about you, Brent, but I didn't see any sign or spore of you out there at any time either day. And I think if we would have seen something, you don't know, it could be one of the scouts, it could be Randall's or somebody else's. It doesn't necessarily have to be ours. We're all wearing pretty much the same stuff out there. And the terrain, the whole area is just so disturbed over the years. Anyhow, I don't think coming across any sign or spore would have really meant anything.
At the most, you're going to see like a crushed Coors can out there.
Right.
I mean, the only way I could see this coming into play is if, you're hunting Randall, and you start finding some cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon, and he's the only one that drinks that shit. So it's like, all right, I'm on his path.
Yeah, I mean, if the survivor sets up camp or is stagnant for a while, that's the only time I could think a tracker would come into play, even with a dog, because like we learn how to defeat dogs, tracking dogs, and yeah, they would have to be right on your ass, and you would have to stop for a pretty long period. Otherwise, you do your figure eight or kind of loop around and shoot the dog and then shoot the owner, and there you go. Or pull a Rambo and decapitate them all. So guys, Stoker's limited on time, so if you want to ask some more questions about the interrogation or his role in that or hunter stuff, put it in there, because he's going to be out in a minute, and then you're going to have to go to his OnlyFans to ask. So ask it here for free.
That's right.
Fill up that flask.
Somebody's got to keep
Stoker, it. Let's say you were a partisan interrogator, and Jared was as mouthy as he was. What would you do if you didn't have to abide by the Geneva Convention or any, type of standard? Let's say you're a Red Dawn partisan, and this is a Soviet prisoner, and you had a prisoner as mouthy as Jared. What would you have done to him?
Well, if there's no reward to keep him alive, it's over.
Yeah, it's a relationship, man.
Yeah, if there's a benefit to keeping somebody alive, and I mean, a little butt stroke to the head never hurt anybody. It all busts out.
And when I went through all my stuff, we were always told, basically, if we get caught, shoot yourself, because they're going to make your life miserable, and they're going to shoot you or kill you either way, whether you talk or not. So you might as well just end it for yourself beforehand.
Well, in this last war, at least for our generation, at least me and my grunts, our thought was, do not get captured, because you're getting shit cut off. I don't want to take anything away from the Vietnam era, but I don't think if you're captured by the people we were dealing with, like these hardcore insurgents and Taliban, I don't think you're going to be in prison for 5 years. I think they're getting something out of you within a day, or they're cutting your head off. And it's going on the news or YouTube. So we were all thinking the same thing. Like, You know, you got the tough guys like keep a bullet for yourself, but we're like, fuck that. We are fighting. And if you run out of ammo, you're fucking using your weapon like a club. They're going to have to kill you. Tough stuff to think about.
Same thought. 100%. I don't know any guys that were under the illusion that somehow like Al Qaeda or the insurgents we were fighting in Iraq or Afghanistan would keep you and not just completely cut your head off on, TV. So nobody had the illusion that they were going to be taken prisoner in the GWAT.
The only reason they're going to keep you alive is so they can kill you and cut your head off on TV.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Stoker. What was your favorite part of SERE Challenge?
I mean, this year, I'd say my favorite part was just being able to step back and have a wider field of view, and being able to work through some of the terrain, as a scout, and, whether it was, linking up with Jared on round 1 or linking up with Brent on round 2, and just working with a couple badasses, but being able to do so in a different way while still having rigs out there. So that was pretty awesome. And I'll say, talking earlier, about the different types of terrain that each competitor faced on each day, this particular region and area has so much of a variety of micro terrain that no matter where you start, begin, or end, I mean, it doesn't even matter which direction that you move, and you're going to face something completely different than what you may have thought that you had faced the day prior. And so that really impacts, both competitors, as they're working through each day. And you may walk into the day 2 with assumptions of thinking what somebody is going to be moving through, and you find it's completely different. And you talk about all those draws and spurs that are coming down, and it is completely wild how much different the terrain can be between just a mere 400 meters to 2,000 meters, right? It's completely different and dynamic. So being able to be on this side and be able to watch it all unfold and just help out and be present, and super dope.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You were there in the first competition, and you were there in the setup and rehearsals before these guys came out. Just to give people a perspective on how big this area is and differing, like, what did you think about the terrain as you're going out there meeting these hunters this time, even though you had kind of been screwing around out there before?
Rephrase your question.
Did you notice, I guess to simplify it, there's areas out there that I get into where I'm like, wow, it's kind of hard to tell where I am right now. Did you get that feeling while you were out there, even with your experience out there before?
So, I mean, I think, yes and no, because it is just so much, we could probably spend 3 weeks out there and just do, hands across America. And that's how long it would take to fully grasp all of those micro terrain features that are out there. But moving up and just working off of, just some general cardinal directions, especially working out with day 1 with rigs, to go up there and meet Jared. Like, I knew kind of where he was at, and obviously I have a tracker to know where he's at, but try not to rely on that too much. It's still different, and totally different terrain than what it worked with in season 1, at least on day 1. Day 2 is kind of some similar terrain with what I'd walked through, but yeah, it's pretty wild. Just how completely vast this area is, and while each competitor, and that's the crazy thing, go through season 1, as a competitor, go through season 2, setting up and going through the area, and still haven't seen all of the AO that's out there and that's available to be used. I mean, it's just expansive how freaking large it is. It's awesome.
And if I can piggyback off that, when I was the hunter, I recognized nothing from when I was a survivor. Like, it was, you might as well have told me I was in a completely different AO, because nothing I saw when I was the hunter, struck a memory in my head. it was completely new. I felt like I was in a completely different part of the freaking state.
Yeah, and I've been screwing around there for a couple years, so I know like all the major features, and if you know your general direction, it's kind of hard to get lost. But I think a lot of people don't appreciate land nav in terrain like that, because when you do get into those valleys and gulches and you can't reference anything around you, that's when it's strange, especially with this foliage, above your head. Like if you don't have a reference point, I've been out there where I've parked my ATV on a hill, like along the road, where I can see, y'all's endpoint, and I can almost see down to where the insertion point is. And I'll get out and walk around and screw in. I'll get down into a depression, and then I'll look up, looking for any kind of reference, and they're gone. And so all I have is this crap around my head, and I'm not a dummy, so I'll pull out my compass or whatever I got on me and reorient myself and get back to my ATV. But I just wanted to give people an idea who haven't been in terrain like that. Like it's not as easy as it looks, because basically everybody we have in this panel is a freaking expert. Stoker has, I think, the best land nav tips on YouTube that I've seen. So all these guys make it look easy. Even Jared, not coming from a ground pounder background, his land nav was on point. So it's kind of hard to, without talking about it, to give people that perspective that it's not easy. You can get turned around out there. And then you got to remember, as the survivors, they're fucking blindfolded and gagged, and we drive the truck all over the place. Like they have no fucking way of knowing where they are.
Nope.
So actually, Jared, you kind of knew which way to take off in. And so I didn't give you any good guidance from the beginning, because I could see on the tracker you were mostly headed in the right direction. How far did you get away from the truck, your insertion point, before you actually pulled out your compass?
So I ran out past the truck about 100 yards up the road or so, and then I cut north and went straight up that mountain. And you said it earlier, that I was breathing really hard during the beginning, and it's because I sprinted 500 feet up this mountain in the first 10 minutes. When I got up there to the top is pretty much when I took a quick 30-second breather, pulled my compass out, and just got my bearings about me. It was just starting to get light. You can kind of see, you could see the trees around you, out a couple hundred yards or so, tree lines and whatnot. So I got my bearings up there on top and tried to going east, and that's when I kept running into the road.
Yeah, so this guy's mentioning pace count. Of course, pace count is pretty much wasted in that terrain. Did either of you guys try to keep a pace count at all?
Maybe for the first 2 minutes. And I think you saw it. Go ahead, Brent.
I was just gonna say I didn't because again, I had no when I was a survivor, I had no grasp on how far exactly the endpoint was. So like for me, there really wasn't a point. Like, even if I knew, hey, I've traveled 500 meters, or if I've traveled a click, okay, well, I don't know where the endpoint is, so what does it matter? I've got two, and maybe that's a grunt mentality, right? It's like, embrace the suck. It is what it is, right? I've got 1 canteen of water, 2 fucking granola bars, and it doesn't matter how far I've traveled. I'm going to travel however far it needs to be traveled until I make it to the endpoint. So no, I didn't keep pace or anything like that, because again, it didn't mean anything to me. All I knew was cardinal direction I was going.
It's not like we're going to a known location or a known point on a map, so the pace count is really a moot point. You just go until you're done.
It might be wasted mental effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, Brent kind of hinted on, that's just one of the extra stressors while you're out there. Like, we purposely don't tell you how far you have to go. One reason is because we don't know which way you're going to go. You could zigzag the whole area, so that would be useless. But also it's a PSYOP game to stress you out even more. You're like, I don't know how far I got to go, but I'm just going to go. You know, so you get the isolation, like we don't talk to you, we don't really help you out, and then you also have no idea how far you got to go.
And I think in one of the episodes when I was the hunter, where Stoker met up with me, where Stoker and Riggs met up with me, I think I actually mentioned to him that keeping a pace count out there is it's impossible, because you're not walking half the time you're on your hands and knees crawling, or on your belly, or you're trying to get through these manzanita and the bridges from the trees and everything, and you can't keep a pace count doing that stuff.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to go one direction and you got to box around like a clump of manzanitas or something. You know, there was times on the trackers where we could tell if you guys were sitting still, because it would have like a cluster of tracks around it, but they were very close together, like a shot group. But when we could tell you guys were trying to box around something, when it just looked like somebody just took a paintbrush on the freaking map. And that's what you guys were doing, because like Stoker actually held his tracker up to the camera in one of the shots we got. And it's like, yeah, it's that's how bad it is. You just see this purple line freaking like a drunk dude stumbling around. So what's your pace count go from there? You know, it's like in that movie Yellowbeard, if anybody knows the classics. Stagger, crawl, roll.
The only way, and maybe Stoker can put some input on this, but in my head, the only way I could even remotely potentially keep a track of like how far I went is to, you know, kind of dead reckon, and then use like the football field method between, you know, me and that point, like how many football fields I think are between that point. And then once I reach that point, like, okay, you know, I'm assuming I've gone this far, because when I was way back there, you know, I thought there was 3 football fields between me and here. So I've traveled about 300 meters or so.
Yeah, no, I think you're kind of dead on a point. And ultimately, it's for me, just looking at the difference between how season 2 unfolded, you know, with not, and I totally understand, you know, not being overly concerned, or even thinking that you can be concerned about your pace count when you're trying to move in a direction. And with the micro terrain that's out there, like Randall was talking about, like there is no straight line that you can keep in this terrain and with that vegetation. I will say early on, as the hunter or as the survivor, I mean, I personally intentionally tried to utilize a little bit of a pace count, but only to mask my movement. So as opposed to moving in a straight line, I moved north for what I was hoping for, about 500 meters. And then I traveled east at a dog leg for about 500 meters, and then north and then east, which ultimately slowed me down quite a bit. But that was the only little bit of a pace count that I could try to utilize back then. But it had nothing to do with an endpoint, like Jared was talking about. You don't know where that fixed known point is that you're trying to go to. So, you know, you're trying to move in this cardinal direction. So it's just, you know, whatever tactics that you want to use on the spot with what you have available, which is not much with all the fucking manzanita and and the gulches and draws and everything. So I think there was a question down below about drones and any specific tactics. So if I can touch on that real quick, it's tough flying a drone and looking at a receiver, but my controller for the drone, right? Our drones are not connected to that receiver. So I know where the survivor is in theory, because I can see it on the tracker. But when I'm looking at my controller for my drone, I don't know exactly where that survivor's at. So when I fly high, it's really to try to get an overhead view for the audience to be able to see the terrain that these guys are moving in. But I know from experience, as well as just, you know, because it just makes sense, that if some dude hears a drone out there, they're not going to be fucking moving. And as long as they're even in a shadow and not moving, I could be 50 feet above ground elevation, and I'm not going to be able to see anything if they're not moving, and they have just a little bit of concealment between that point of observation and the drone. So getting down low is a little bit more psychological, because I want people to be able to hear it and to try to get a little bit of a pucker factor, like, oh my God, like they know kind of where I'm at or something. As far as techniques, like I think we both used, some figure eights and some boxes to do some scans and just to push the drone around a little bit. But it is extremely tough to try to rely on an overhead aerial observation to gain some, micro level or amount of detailed information that's actionable. I mean, it's really more of a anti operation as opposed to a counter operation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point about getting the drones on these guys. Our trackers, they have really good maps and they have a lot of good settings, but the only reference point we get is the screen is always oriented north.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we get. So like when we're out there on the ground, even if I'm just putting the drone up to get shots of something and get it in the guy's area, that alone takes some pretty good estimation. So
Mm-hmm.
when you got the drone over Brent when he was out there, that's some pretty good techniques to figure out, first of all, which direction you got to go with the damn thing, because you're looking at two different screens, and then you actually get it right over his friggin' head. And then we'll get into Jared's fun with the drones. That'll be coming up, but it's the same thing, and you're just looking at that tiny screen. So I don't know if people know this, but this Google Map terrain stuff, it's like it could be 5 to 10 years old. Sometimes it's only a year old. So there, with that being on the ground, when we're going out there to do stuff, if you look at that, you might see like what looks like a clearing. And I think we talked about this in the first season. And you walk out there thinking there's a clearing, and it's just full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
So, that hurts even more. It's like, I think we're kind of spoiled, because we're used to our, like, the military gets to tap into live Google Earth on the SIPRnet. So if you're looking on the SIPRnet in the military world, you can see what's happening per second on Google Maps. You could see a car that was just there. And, like we get these satellite images given to us before raids, and it's, yeah. And then we get outside of that world. We're like, man, this sucks.
Yep.
So I wanted to, you got something else, Stoker, before you got to go?
No, I can hang out for maybe I'll do another 10, man.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Brent, you want to talk about your loadout? Somebody was asking about the weight of it and what's going to be your key piece in there.
So that's not coming in a further additional episode, or I can disclose everything in there?
Yeah, just talk about, like, he was asking what the weight is, and I put the text up about the major components you have, but
yeah,
how much
so
you weighed?
I don't know, maybe like 20 pounds or something. I had a whole thing of coffee in there, guys. So again, I went out there. You see, Jared's laughing because he hasn't seen any of my footage, and I haven't seen any of his. You guys got to realize, like, this is all new to us. Like, Jared hasn't seen what I did, and I haven't seen what he did. But I had a whole like giant thermos of coffee, and my canteen cup, and my field stool, and I had this little like camouflage poncho that matched. I swear to God, it might as well be called Manzanita camo because it's like 100% spot on match of it. But I had that, and I went up there, and you guys will see in future episodes. Like what my plan was, I executed that, and I drank some of that coffee. But I had additional warming layers. I was prepared for this to go into the wee hours in the morning, so into the next day. So whatever unfolds between now and then, like, I was prepared for it, and I had all that stuff in there. So. And because I knew that I was going to be, taking the higher speed avenues of travel to get in front of Jared, like, even though I was carrying all this additional weight, I didn't have any, qualms about it. Like I figured I could get ahead of him and move quicker than him. So because I'm taking those higher speed avenues in, and again, I'm going off my previous experience that, the shit I had to deal with on the day one in that, thick terrain, like, I'm anticipating him going through that type of stuff. So, I had no worries whatsoever about carrying extra additional gear. So somebody posted a comment like if we had any regrets about the stuff we carried or took, and me, no, I think I packed accordingly. I wouldn't change a thing. Even knowing the outcome, I was prepared for all the different possibilities of this challenge, given the 24-hour window. So I wouldn't have changed my loadout, even if I had to do it all over again. I would keep the same stuff in there.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the hunter can dump off stuff to his scout support at any time. He could get stuff brought out to him. So Brett chose to start that way. He could have started off light so he could sprint, but we saw he didn't have any problems with that. You guys will see some gear dumps and exchanges in the next couple episodes. You also see when Brent sets up more OPs, you'll see a lot more coffee time. He's up there. It's funny. I wish I could give it away, but there's going to be some cool scenes where Brent's sitting there drinking coffee, and I switch to Jared, and it gets interesting. So, Stoker, this is for you. If you had spotted Brent with the drone, could you have been able to get in there to capture him? So, I'll say no. The scouts are not allowed to capture people, but Stoker can answer what he would do from that.
So I mean, yes. So if I had a drone and I could positively identify where the survivor was at, the TTP would be to keep that drone right over the top for as long as the battery would last, and that would be the key thing: is how long is that battery going to last? And most commercial drones that cost less than $1,000, you're going to be lucky to get 30 minutes off of the battery. So if it took you 15 minutes to get out there, you only have 15 minutes, but that drone still has to be able to make its way back. So maybe you have a total of 15 minutes from point of observation to direction for the hunter to be able to say, this is where the survivor is at. And so then it would be totally up to them to use the most, the key avenues of approach to be able to get to that point and try to work their way in until the drone, had to leave. But not only, that the hunter could be using the drone itself as a kind of a beacon. I can hear it. I can start to see it. It's getting louder. I know I'm moving in the exact right direction. And even if, the drone had to leave, to refuel before it got brought out of the sky by a Russian jet, at least you had a known fixed point where as the hunter that you're heading to. So then at that point in time, the hunter may have a little bit more of a likely chance to being able to use some tracking, skills that whatever they have in their kit bag.
Yeah, it's a good point about the batteries. Yeah, we things would just get interesting, and then we'd have to bring them back. And you guys also got to remember we're trying to. We can't park right next to somebody and put up the drone. We have to keep our distance from these guys as well, because we can't give away any one of their positions from the other. So even if Stoker's supporting the hunter, which is Brent this time around, he can't just go put the drone up right next to him, because Jared could look up and see this freaking drone coming out of the canopy like, oh, yeah, he might be sitting over there. So it's pretty tricky how we had to do all that. So should we take a poll? What kind of coffee is Brent drinking?
I want to address, bureaucrat bayonet. Hey man, you should unsubscribe anyways. It's freaking ridiculous. That dude's been watching my channel for years, and all of a sudden I see him post that he wants Jared to win. Freaking traitor. So you should go ahead and go subscribe to Jared and learn how to shoe horses, traitor.
He's getting his shooting channel up and going, so we don't know it's a front just to execute horses all day long.
No, I do not drink commie bucks. So I'm going to share this story. So a friend of mine, one of my Marines, told me a story when he was in Iraq. His unit was in Iraq, and they got together, I think, like $1,000, and they sent it to. Now, let me preface: I can't verify this story, but this guy is a freaking. He was a first sergeant in the Marine Corps, so staff NCO. I have no reason to doubt him whatsoever. But when he was in Iraq, his unit sent like $1,000, and this is like at the height of Iraq War, right? They sent like $1,000, collected up unit funds, from the guys in country while deployed to Starbucks. And he said that they sent it to like a local Starbucks, from where they deployed out of. And they got some letter saying that like Starbucks doesn't support the war on terror. And thank you for their donation and stuff like that. And they never sent any coffee or anything. So can you fucking believe that? I was like, dude, yeah. I was like, are you kidding me, dude? He's like, dude, I swear. And I was like, that is ridiculous. So take it for what it's worth. It's hearsay. I can't verify anything, but this is what the staff NCO told me what his experience was. So anyways, I had already been anti-Starbucks long before that, but that story just solidifies it in my head.
Meanwhile, Ted Nugent is sending out free freaking beef jerky all over the place. I don't know. I could see Jared putting back some Starbucks. One of those volcanoes. Come on, everybody had to have seen the breaking news now for Jared. So I had to tailor it. And you know what? I had somebody send me a message and say, how did you stage the footage of the tractor in the house? And I had to tell that guy we're not fucking friends anymore if he doesn't know what that scene is. You guys know what that is, right? We're gonna have to end the SERE challenge already. The fucking tractor scene coming through the house, Futterman.
Oh, with the gremlins?
You guys are killing me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeez, I think I'm the youngest one on this panel. I can't be the only one that knows Gremlins.
One of the best Christmas movies of all time.
It is a Christmas movie. People forget
Damn
about
straight it is.
They need a third one. The second one was kind of a bummer. We need a third one.
I do want to say something. So there was a lot of trash talking prior to the event, and you guys are going to see that in episode 10, I assume. I don't know what Randall's putting in there, but he's got plenty of content to work with. But I just want to say I'm not a big trash talker, despite probably my actions. But I got to tell you, I love the old documentary Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And if you guys have ever seen that documentary, he like psychs out his opponents. He's going up against like Lou Ferrigno and stuff, and he's like, oh, can you imagine 5-time Mr. Olympia? And he's like sitting there, and they'll go up to like the little guy, and like the little guy always keeps his arm in. You got to come out with it, And he psychs all these people out. So that was my strategy going into the SERE challenge with Jared, was to try to psych him out, right? To try to make myself bigger than I actually am, and psych him out or overthink stuff, and try to give me the edge. So that is the source of all the trash talking leading up to the SERE challenge. So,
yeah, that was pretty much the start of it, wasn't it?
So this guy says Jared is humble because he won. Bet your bayonet, buddy.
Traitor. You have to watch and
That's
find out.
Guy's a traitor. You're dead to me.
Yeah, Pumping Iron, man. That's cool. That's when he's talking about the meaning of life is working out and coming, which is
coming. You get
not a bad way to live.
The muscle. It's like sex with a kill.
They're like, what do you eat every day? About 40 chickens. When they go to that time they're having lunch, and they're like having a light lunch with Ferrigno and all them, and it's like 5,000 calories a piece.
Yeah, that whole documentary is just fantastic. If you guys haven't seen that, you got to check it out. It's a blast from the past.
That's a great one. So Jeff, the guy that helped in the first season, he's gonna be out there helping me out with other stuff soon. He is a huge Arnold fan, so I'm sure he loved your impression.
Well,
He's
if I ever
an
come
Arnold
out,
fanboy.
if I ever come out and help for the interrogations, you might have comrade Schwarzenegger-iski.
Well, you know, he's doing that road trip with me. So if we can stop by and see you guys are 100% doing the fucking Predator handshake. With Dylan, you son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
Yep.
What's wrong, Dylan? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils?
Yep. Jeff was my captain for a while, and anytime he shook hands with anybody, I don't care if it was a sergeant major or a friggin' brigade commander, I would be like, Dylan, and embarrass him. So, do we have any questions about our noble president's response to this prisoner? Because I need to get some different shots of him coming down the stairs, you know, to give us his kind words about our detainees, because, you know, he's a graceful dude.
I know about that.
That'll be in the B-roll too. I think I put us in there laughing in Jared's interrogation for like 5 seconds, but yeah. How long did we let that roll in his ear, Stoker? We gave him extra music.
He did get some extra music, yeah. But that was tough because at one point in time, I had to rewind it manually to get it to loop, right? On that one reel. But he got quite a bit of time.
Yeah. See, I had people thinking about the old school methods of like harassment music. You know, like I mentioned in other talks, they tried Slayer and death metal on me, and I just got pumped up because that's my stuff. So they're like, you know, they have to tailor the music. So people were giving me shit for not turning on death metal for Jared. And I'm like, we talked to him beforehand. We knew. Right. So, you know, we asked him if he liked the soft stuff, and yeah, he was pretty upset about it. So, guys, if you think it's a breeze, put on freaking Milli Vanilli on repeat on that one chorus that's freaking repeated that they screwed up live. That's where I got that from. Put that in your ears for 20 minutes. Tell me how you're doing. Although I think the cat stuff got to him worse. He kind of seemed a little too happy when Milli Vanilli came on.
I think he was smiling underneath that mask too when you guys were jabbing him with a hard object.
Oh yeah. He showed me his hard object. All right, so let's get to some final questions. You guys start throwing them in there. So Tom Porter saw him tapping his feet to the Milli Vanilli. You know, you're gonna see him get up and do something awesome during the Milli Vanilli and the B rolls.
What are you doing?
Yeah, you know, I couldn't. The one you guys are talking about, I could not find that in my stuff. So I think when I merged it over to my other computer, I lost it. But I found another part that'll make up for it. So, and you guys need to go to fans only to find out what we're talking about. It's going to be in the Master Your Craft only fans. So it sounds like just from the questions we're getting, Stoker, you might want to do a Master Your Craft on SERE land nav.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I can only do so many land nav videos before, you know, it becomes too much. But I mean, I've done a few in the past, and I'll be throwing up some more.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't seen his land nav videos, those are on point, man, because they're clear and concise and very, very Joe proof. If you don't learn something from those, you're not learning anything. You're unlearnable.
And that's one thing I can give props to the U.S. military for. Like, we have a uncanny ability to just break things down Barney style.
Barney style.
You know, for basic knuckle draggers out there, because they're going to learn the stuff, and they're going to learn it one way or another. And I think we do a good job in the U.S. military across the branches, of just breaking things down for just the dumbest of dumb, so that anybody can learn it.
Yeah, crawl, walk, run, man. When I went to jump school, I was like, I was more worried about trusting, old ass World War II equipment, but the instruction was on point. That's what I noticed, that crawl, walk, run stuff. Like if you fail a standard Army course, you're just, we're talking about IQs in the 20s. You're trying to fail.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of that, Stoker does have some SERE challenge related stuff on his channel. So if you guys are interested in something like that, he goes through like you got like a 2-hour video, I think, on you as the hunter, like your priorities and assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, in my Fieldcraft playlist, I mean, I did do a roll up of my execution as the hunter and kind of overlaid with what I was thinking going through it. There's a lot of stealth navigation videos, as well as just some different Fieldcraft related tactics as it relates to the SERE challenge, and a lot of those ideas and content came from the not only the experience of last year, but also just things just like this, dudes talking, oh, this would be kind of cool to see. So let me try to flesh some of that shit out. So
yeah, it's a whole other ball game. So Jared, interesting question for you. What did you actually do in the Navy?
So I was an electronics technician, aviation electronics technician. And when I got to my permanent duty station, they didn't have my billet there. They didn't understand. Nobody knew why I was sent there. So they gave me a couple different options to do. I worked in it a little bit in some different areas of it on occasion. But did some counter narcotics work and some security type stuff.
Is that when you went to the school you told me about, where you were in the hot box?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, so you have done some kind of SERE related training.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's on me. I should have put that in the trailer somehow. Navy veteran and somehow did SERE training. I don't know how I would have fit that in, but people are like, oh, a Navy veteran versus, Brent. And I know a lot of people, they see, Brent has this big YouTube, so he's got a lot more like, idolism, but, Jared does have this training. Like, I didn't just grab some dude. Oh, you sat on boats? All right, cool, man. Come out here and fucking go against this Marine,
Yeah, I wasn't typical Navy. I never had any sea time or anything like that. I was never on a ship. I was shore duty my whole time.
So maybe Brent spent more time on a ship than you.
He absolutely did. I have 0 ship time.
That's where all that homophobia comes from, like real experience.
Dude, you guys have no idea
no
how they
idea.
treat Marines on a ship. We're in their house. We're just along for the ride, and it's the living conditions are pretty
Brutal.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Freaking hot.
So I've never even, the only time I ever saw a naval vessel of the United States Navy is when I flew to San Diego. I had to go down there for a med board when I hurt my back. And I was taking a taxi ride from San Diego International Airport over to the Naval Hospital down there. And I saw an aircraft carrier and I think a destroyer sitting in the harbor at the pier. That was my extent of my ship time in the Navy. Seeing it about a mile out from me.
Yeah, see, I grew up on the Gulf Coast, so we had, all those guys out there. We saw big old battleships all the time, man. Never been on one, though. That was actually...
Oh, and I almost forgot. In downtown Pittsburgh, I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area, we have an old World War II submarine. I've been on that a few times.
We had a submarine that kind of worked and then sunk in the Civil War. It's at where is that place? Somewhere on the Gulf Coast. There's like a freaking big old. It's like a. I don't think it's just a naval thing, but they got a lot of ships and some aircraft, and there's like a prototype of this sub that they designed during the Civil War, and I think it worked once and then sunk, and everybody died. So
It was supposed to go out and drill a hole in the bottom of the ship and place a mine or something like that, I think.
yeah, could have been, but yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I saw another question and I lost it. All right, never mind. So, anybody got anything else? Keesler, yeah, that's where I grew up, around Keesler. So, Stoker, you're the first one out. Last words. What are people expecting coming up?
Whatever they're expecting, they're probably not going to see, because there's just all kinds of tricks that, you know, each one of these dudes are out there getting after it. And all I can say is, if you think you can do it, get on over to Randall's channel and get signed up.
Yeah, we've got some things in the works, guys.
Oh, and next year, too, right? Next season, we gotta get some dudes out there. You talk the talk, but can you walk the walk?
So we'll do a Brent and Stoker rematch in the snow.
In the snow.
See, I saw people talking about that, and it's, you know, it would be awesome, but I don't know. Stoker's seen so much of the AO now. I guess we could bring. Maybe that's where the new AO comes out. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the getting drunk idea. We'll just get you guys both plastered and just be like, if you can do this 180 azimuth for 500 meters, you win. And
right.
We'll see who's tougher under freaking inebriation, the Marines or crusty old Army. All right, so Brent, what are people looking at? What should people expect from you as the hunter? You've won the first round. Now you gotta defend the endpoint.
Yeah, so you know, like I said, my intent was to close that time distance gap, and if I remember correctly, that episode does show that at one point on the map I was parallel with him. So I closed that gap, and I'm getting ahead of him. So going into the next episode, you're going to see me transitioning into, hey, it's now I'm going to start putting my plan into motion where I'm starting to establish these LPOPs, trying to get ahead of Jared and, you know, get the eyes out for him. And drink some coffee while I'm at it.
All right. So, Jared, do you think people are wondering if you can keep up your pace, this fast pace you got going on?
Oh yeah, I definitely keep it up. I do get slowed down, getting into some thicker stuff later on, and you'll see that. But I think I stayed ahead of Brent pretty much the whole day. And the only other thing I can really say is multicam in that environment works really, really well.
Yeah, so Brent, you rocked the BDUs again, right?
Hunter? Yeah, I wore women. And you know, I thought it was still an effective camouflage. I thought both patterns were effective, to be quite frank. So
very much so, yeah.
I think probably the multicam blends in better with the manzanitas, but there's a lot of that terrain out there that, particularly on that west side, it's I guess on the east side too. There's a lot of downed trees and just straight dirt and dark brown from the downed trees. That, you know, that woodland is just money. And I'll remind you, like, I never saw Jared until, you know, the end of the challenge. So, you know, and he never saw me either. So, you know, that's a testament to the effectiveness of woodland also.
Yeah. So maybe next time I will force the guys to wear like UCP or something. one guy in UCP and one guy in just OD green. Or just bright orange vest for both of them.
I got a buddy of mine that just loves UCP. He thinks it's the greatest thing since pockets on G's. So he lives out in the desert, and admittedly, it does work pretty good out where he is. But he's just his thing is like everybody shits on UCP, right? And he's like, it doesn't deserve all that hate, blah blah blah, and that's why he defends it so adamantly. And I'm like, dude, come on. It's the only camouflage pattern in American history that had like congressional inquiries on why it was so garbage. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, dirty snow, like alpine areas, it would kind of work, but we've talked about this around the campfire. Like a lot of our biggest problems was just the quality, the drop in quality. So where the areas where it would work, like even some places in upper Afghanistan, but the crotch rips out after a month, zipper fails, freaking Velcro doesn't work. It's just, there was no quality control on the actual functionality of it. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do a UCP only version.
It's funny because when we were doing like the pre, getting ready for all this, and you were asking a bunch of questions like, hey, can you handle confined areas and stuff like that? You had asked what our BDU sizes were. And I thought, I was almost like positive that you were going to put us in, because you told us like you're going to get these black BDUs. And I thought for sure you were going to put us in these black BDUs as like a prisoner outfit for the SERE challenge. So like I brought my camouflage, but I had the expectation that I was going to be thrown into this like prisoner outfit for this challenge. So.
All right, here's a good one to close out on. Brent, what did you think about riding through the Bay Area? The real challenge.
Dude, the freaking homelessness out there is just appalling. I mean, you're going down the highways and there's literally little tent cities on the sides of the freaking highways. And, and I watched Gavin Newsom come on the news and talk this, that, and the other about one issue or the next. And I'm like thinking, dude, get your own freaking house in order. It's ridiculous.
Once you got out of the metro, did you still have enough light to see the countryside?
Yeah, I mean it was beautiful once we got up to the mountain areas. You don't even think you're in California anymore. It's different. It's not what you think. Having been stationed at Camp Pendleton, I was pretty familiar with Southern California. In the cities and stuff, which, is not San Francisco. There's not homeless encampments. I mean, maybe there is now. It's been a while since I was stationed there, but
yeah, it's become the same.
Yeah, that's disheartening. It's funny because if you look back at like Reagan's election, right? Like California used to be, I don't know if I should use the word conservative, but it went red. They voted for Reagan. And, there was the Richard Nixon Library down there in Southern California. And it's just to see what it's become. It's just ridiculous. But it really gives you somewhat hope, right? When you leave those main cities and you go out to places like up in those mountains where you have those smaller communities. And it's America. It's what America is supposed to be. And what America represents. You still have some, patriotic Americans out there. In those rural parts of that state.
Yeah, I mean, even right, I don't know which route you took out, but the main route me and you we took that really long bridge, the San Leandro Bridge or San Mateo Bridge. And basically, once you get over that away from the metro, it's like almost all, Americans. It's just like, it's like everywhere else. The metros run everything. That's what's funny. And then you get far out. It's like, yeah, if you would have had daylight when you actually got up around our area, you would have seen, instead of tent cities and stuff, you got, freaking 40 broken down cars in people's yards and, double wides and falling apart trailers, but brand new trucks. It's like standard, rural America. But I like how people talked about that. Ever since you mentioned it, that's going to be the most challenging part for you. People are like, dude, just capture him in the city. Well, yeah, I don't know if we want to get shot in downtown San Francisco or arrested on
You
the
know,
spot.
I was kind of nervous about flying into San Francisco with my checked firearm. I was like, how the hell is this going to go over? I don't know. It went.
So I dropped you off in the world famous airport. What did they say about it when you walked in there?
It was fine. There was no big holdup. I was surprised. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stoker's got to roll, and I think we'll roll. We're going to do some more bullshitting at the end of this. So if you guys want to watch us get drunk, make sure you subscribe to that 2 Alpha Solutions fans only, because that's where it's going to be.
That's where it be.
We'll get drunk after the next one, and we'll definitely do some in the Navy stuff. So, yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week in episode 8, and then the live chat for that one.